What's up, party people? After popular demand, I'm starting my Survivor podcast. I'm Survivor Teek, and how it's going to go is I'm going to talk about the episode, more of the strategic elements that were pretty interesting to chat about, and then I'll have my second video on more of the Edgic. Who are the players that are most likely to win, and how am I determining that? So without further ado, let's get to it. Season 41 has been quite the start of the season, and I've been missing Survivor. I've been watching Australian Survivor, South African Survivor, both pretty good seasons, but I really feel like this one's gonna come right off the bat pretty hard. 26 days, shortened season, so they have to hit the ground running. This is really going to change the scope and the pace of the game significantly. I really feel like the under the radar players, those who are trying to play quiet near the start, aren't going to be able to get as much traction. There really is nowhere to hide. I think another big part of the season we're seeing already is that there's 3 tribes of 6. With a tribe of 6, your name is going to be on chopping block no matter what. Your vote's going to matter, and you're going to have to get involved with the strategy immediately. And what can I say about this episode so far? The editing's been pretty good across the map. We've gotten a little bit to hear about each and every single player. We've gotten larger confessionals, people like Tiffany, from Ricard, from JD. And so they might be more important players coming into the season because we have gotten to hear a little bit of their backstory, but so far the players look pretty strong. A few advantages so far this season. One of them is the Beware advantage, which we still don't know anything about. So if you recall, Jeff Probst at the start of the episode put it in the Luvu tribe camp, and it's still yet to be found, although Tiffany was sniffing around it. I don't know what it's going to be. It could be something like safety without a vote, which we've seen in South African Survivor and Australian Survivor, I believe. And so it could be some type of twist where there may be a risk associated to it, which is losing your vote, or some type of gamble, which seems to be a bit of the theme of the season. And it could end up blowing up in people's faces. The interesting thing so far is that there have been no idols. No real talk about idols. There doesn't seem to be any idols around camp. As you may know, the hidden immunity idol is such a fundamental part of the Survivor DNA at this stage. That's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. So let's talk about the twists that did play part of the game. I think the first one, which is most interesting, was the savvy versus strength little twist. So if you remember, they all jumped off the boat, and the green tribe was the only one who didn't absolutely screw up that challenge. They found their paddles. They were able to clip off their boat. And so the blue and the yellow tribes were given this option. And it was Vochi on the yellow tribe that actually had the most interesting analysis between the savvy and strength option. And so there was a triangle puzzle where they had to solve it. And I've been reading the spoilers online, and it sounds like there were 51 triangles, although who knows if people would have gotten that in 4 hours. And then there was also the ability to have 2 people go out and collect water. And so this immediately was a very interesting dilemma for the tribes. You now have to choose who are your 2 strongest people if you do want to do the water challenge, and you immediately split the camp into 2 and 4. And you saw this have a bit more of an impact on the blue tribe, where they ended up picking Deshawn, and they ended up picking Danny, and then the other 4 went back to camp. And presumably, the 2 of them kind of have a small side alliance that are looking for idols, and the other 4, they could have started their own alliance, but Nasir may have blown that all up by being a little bit too blunt about it. But the yellow tribe had a bit more of an interesting analysis over here. Vochi said, you know what, I don't want to be the fool who's over there 4 hours exhausting myself. I'm out of the game immediately. I'm not socializing with the tribe. And I have to run back and forth with this water like a fool. And he was more interested in the 6-person strategy. Now, this one's a difficult one because the sure thing is the water. You only had one guess when it came to those triangles, and I looked through it, and I'm a math guy, and that was a pretty difficult puzzle. I think given 45 minutes to an hour, I think anybody could probably sit down and figure it out and be confident about it. The interesting part of it, though, is that there's 6 people, so you have to convince 5 other people, even if you're the person who knows it, and there becomes a bit of trust. If you get it wrong and you're the person who wants to lead that. So if, let's say Vochi on the yellow tribe said, you know what, I'm the mirror surgeon. I'm the one who knows fine details. I can figure this out like no time. If he ends up saying 50 instead of 51, just makes a pretty simple error. Big target on his back. So at the end of the day, I actually think the water challenge, although both were not optimal, really, I still think that was probably the better option. I think it played an important factor on the yellow tribe specifically, because why didn't Abraham do that? So you had Vochi and you had Xander do that challenge. And Vochi, I think, probably Abraham outmuscled him. Abraham kept talking about strength as part of his narrative, and he wasn't really able to showcase that in that one specific challenge. But I'll get to the tribals shortly, don't worry. I try to make this fast-paced, but we'll get to that. Just some other kind of basic elements of the game. I think this no rice, penalties for losing, like, I really think it adds to more of the survival element of the game. I think people aren't going to be complaining about that type of lifestyle, and people are going to have to go to the challenges to win. And so for those who've been watching Survivor, throwing challenges has become a pretty common circumstance, particularly after a tribe swap or some type of mixing of the tribes, where it makes more sense to protect somebody who you're aligned to on the other tribe who might be on the chopping block, so you try to throw it for yourself. With these additional disadvantages, and not, for example, having flint, and all of these twists at hand, I think they're really making it so the era of throwing challenges is over. We've seen throwing challenges have disastrous circumstances in other seasons, and so I'm quite happy if they're going to make people want to play these challenges. And these people, I think, so far are here to play. Nobody said that, hey, I'm too tired, I'm here to quit. People are here to play, and that's pretty exciting. One of the other twists they had was this quote-unquote summit. And so each of the tribes had to pick one person to go up to this mystery kind of adventure. This is very common in the modern era of Survivor, as well as Oz and South African Survivor, a very common first or second week play, where you have to pick somebody randomly that has some type of twist. Usually it's you bring back rice or you get an advantage, something like that. This one was a little bit of a twist as well, and that played an impact on exactly why they made their decisions. So the first thing to note is how they pick these people. It was very interesting that although each of the three tribes had a bit of a different mechanic in picking their leader, that in all cases it was kind of the alpha male of each of the tribes. So in the blue tribe, really none of them really wanted to step up. You had a pretty good segment of Sydney saying, people know I'm the adventurous type, people know I went to 49 countries, but I ain't doing this. I don't want that blood on my hands. And so people kind of backed up, and so Danny just said, I'll do it. I'll go ahead. The yellow tribe was a bit more interesting. Evie had a little bit of a background in explaining how that was picked, and each of the tribe members essentially said, yeah, Xander, we kind of maybe trust him, and we think he'll tell the truth. So it was a bit more of a democratic decision instead of it just everybody just backed out decision. In green, it looked like everyone wanted it, and that really shows what the green tribe is about, and I'll get more on that later on too. But everyone wanted in, and so they ended up picking rocks, and JD picked the white rock, and the A2 Survivor made a big deal out of it, which I thought was quite funny, but he ended up going as well. And so these three all seem like pretty important characters in this first episode of this season. And so when it came to this walk, JD had this interesting montage about how he was a skinny, nerdy boy before. I can relate to that. And so it was pretty interesting hearing about that. But something I'll get more into in my second episode on the Edgic is JD really talked about, hey, I want to be like an Aussie. I want to be like a Woo. Two of the most famous second placers in Survivor history. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe JD's going to get second place this season. And so they ended up with this dilemma. It was essentially Prisoner's Dilemma, although online everyone's saying it's a hawk dove. It's not Prisoner's Dilemma. It's the same thing. It was a game theory experiment where if all of them were to risk, they all lose their vote. If at least one of them chooses to protect, which is basically just a status quo, like I ain't doing nothing, then the other two will end up getting that extra vote if they risk someone protected. So just let's get into exactly what the vote was about. It was about either losing your vote in the first tribal that you go to or getting an additional vote, which I don't think was clear at the time, but it's good up until the final 6. And so specifically in this season, this additional vote is like extremely overpowered. And you start off with smaller tribes. So immediately in a tribe of 6 or 5 people, that additional vote has that much more power. And so just thinking about that, I would definitely lean towards that. I also think, and you saw this a little bit in the Green Tribe's Tribal Council, but vote splitting is going to become more of a thing this season. And so to be able to combat vote splitting with an extra vote can be absolutely pivotal. One of the reasons why vote splitting is happening more, and this is interesting because a shot in the dark wasn't yet announced yet until after this challenge, but in retrospect it became even more important. Because a shot in the dark basically means that at any point, if anybody knows they're at the bottom, they can roll a dice, essentially a 1 in 6, and see if they're able to get safety. And in that case, I believe it essentially works like an idol, and then all your votes against you do not count. And so it almost incentivizes that you have to split vote every single time to try to circumvent the shot in the dark, unless you're okay being the shot that the person at the bottom throws at. And so that ends up adding a lot of complexity to the game, and that additional vote can be a way to protect yourself from the shot in the dark, to screw up a vote split, or just to ensure that you have some additional power when it comes to a 3-3 alliance split or 5-5 alliance split, come merge or tribe swap or anything like that. So I think it was a very smart decision to pick it. Why Danny chose to protect, I believe he was trying to save the narrative to his team. And I thought Xander actually had the best analysis when it came to how this challenge ought to have been done. He essentially stated that the tribes expect me to bring something back. There was no rice. It didn't say if you protect, you get rice, or you get coconuts, or you get something for your tribe. So he said, I don't really have an option. If I choose to protect, it looks like I'm lying. And this throws into the social dynamics. If I at least act selfishly, then people will at least believe me, and then I can use that selfish act as something for the tribe. Let's share the vote. Let's use it strategically later on. And so I really thought that Xander did quite a smart job in exactly how he played it. JD was a bit of a fool in kind of explaining a half-truth, but it seemed to work. And so let's just run down to the tribe dynamics and what's going on at Tribal Council. So the blue tribe, they killed the puzzle. And so I give big ups to Erica, to Deshawn, who are the puzzle beasts. Stepping up for puzzles can be a really risky strategy. And you saw this especially in the green tribe when Brad was like, Sarah, Shen, you messed up the puzzle. Y'all gotta go. But over there in the blue tribe, big ups to them. Erica's a Canadian girl, so obviously I'm Team Erica. But that tribe has been pretty interesting so far. We didn't see a lot from them, but Nasir tried to throw Deshawn and Danny a little bit under their bus, which was a really risky strategy, and in fact backfired. He was the rat, and Sydney was the rat for the rat. The law student, she ended up going back to Deshawn and Danny and said, Nasir's against you, and Deshawn's like, he's got to go. And I think Deshawn and Danny, being the muscle for that tribe, especially Danny, he could probably single-handedly beast every challenge for that team. There's nobody else on the entire island that comes close to his strength other than maybe JD and Xander, but they have different kind of skill sets, whereas Danny probably just has that agility, that brute force to really help him through those challenges. And so I think Danny's going to be safe. I think Erica, I believe her name's Heather, and Sydney are all going to stick with those two. So Nasir better hope that team keeps winning immunity. There's not much more to say about that tribe. When it comes to the green tribe, that tribe is definitely the most active. You get a lot of JD saying that he's able to play everybody. You see JD with Sarah. We're the younger people. You see JD with Brad. We got to stick together. You see a montage of JD with Genie and Brad. And see, JD's kind of working the tribe. Then you kind of see Shan with her evil theme music doing the same thing. The pastor who knows how godly she is. Just kidding. I'm sure she is. But she's out there to backstab. She's out there to play. And so Shan's doing the exact same thing. You kind of see a little bit of the Shan, Ricard, Sarah alliance. And so you come into Tribal Council thinking that there really is a break in this. There's Ricard and Sarah on one side. You have the others, Genie, Brad, and JD. And Shan's in the middle. And that's how it's edited for us to see. Upon further kind of reflections, Sarah said that she kind of knew that the five were coming against her. And you kind of saw this in Ricard's vote for voting for Sarah. And so it just sounded like maybe Sarah kind of fell on the weaker side of things. Sarah said that she put a lot of trust into Ricard and Shan, and she didn't really work with the rest of the tribe, and that probably fell to her disadvantage. Those other three didn't really have any reason to really save Sarah. I think when JD was told, and they showed this in the episode, Brad was like, Sarah's throwing your name out. JD's like, huh, really? Okay, Sarah's got my vote. And so I think Sarah may have misplayed it, which sucks. So she's actually a super fan of the show, and I thought she had a really good edit and a really good chance to make it through in this game. But I think siding with Ricard was a poor decision. And I think Shan kind of put herself in a bit of a messy spot as well, being a little bit wishy-washy in this vote also. There's been a lot of chat about Genie's vote on Ricard, and I really think this was a vote split. So this kind of goes back to the shot in the dark stuff I was talking about. So had Sarah played the shot in the dark, which was her one regret in the game, she wanted to do it, but I think Ricard and Shan played it hard enough to kind of throw the fleece over her eyes. We saw this in Tribal Council when Shan was like, don't play your shot in the dark, don't do it. When Shan's writing her name down, this is classic Survivor. So had Sarah have played it, it would have been a vote split, 1-1 between Brad and then Ricard would have been the other person. And then the quote-unquote alliance of four, which is in reality, the edit hasn't shown it that much. It's Shan, Genie, Brad, and JD. They can then all throw the vote on the revote against Ricard and make sure that he's gone instead of Brad. So it was a way to kind of save Brad, really. And so although Brad was so shown to be probably the most socially inept person on that tribe, I think he's coming out looking good. When it comes to the edit, I think Shan has a really good shot on the green tribe to move forwards. I think there's still going to be a train wreck moving forward. So we'll see who turns on who, but that's been an interesting tribe. The yellow tribe was a little bit more straightforward. You saw Abraham, and he just kind of had his tiff with Tiff, as you want to say it. And so he started talking about how Tiffany wasn't really pulling her weight and things like that, but we never really saw this as part of the show. We didn't see Tiffany struggling at that reward challenge with the battles. We didn't really see her struggling at the immunity challenge. So it made Abraham seem like a bit of a dope. Like he didn't really know what was going on. And that was a bit of the edit that he was given in the episode also. So what ended up happening was the tribe of five all kind of banded against him. In Abraham's post interviews, he said that he felt close with everyone except for Evie. He felt pretty close with Xander. He felt pretty close with Vochi, pretty close with Liana, as close as you can be. What we did see on the episode was Evie and Liana were kind of the people in the middle ground who didn't really want Tiffany to go. We saw Evie talk to Vochi. Presumably she chatted with Xander as well. We're probably didn't get a lot of it because they wanted to kind of keep the editing a little bit obfuscated to keep us on our toes. But it's just how like Abraham didn't build those social connections. And this is just basic Survivor 101. You shouldn't really start throwing people out. You want to be the person who's on the defense. If someone throws out your name, then you have an easy target. You're not the one seen to really stir up drama. It's like JD, like Sarah threw out my name. I'm going for Sarah. JD, as much as he was JD, wasn't really throwing out names. And so I think that kind of saved him, even though he was a bit of a social pariah on the Green Tribe. Unlike Abraham, who threw out a name, Tiffany probably genuinely was the weakest person on that team. But I just think they didn't really like Abraham's attitude. I think Evie and Liana were worried about a men's alliance just coming after them. So they were able to kind of keep the tribe cohesive. But it just sounded like basic social outmaneuvering. Old school risk. And Abraham was blindsided. And you're going to see the blindsides more this season because of the shot in the dark. And so I think it's a way to incentivize it. You want them to know they're going because you don't want them to play any type of advantage. Not only that, a shot in the dark as well. So I don't want this to run too long, but that's been my episode 1 Survivor recap. I'm going to go more into detail about the players and who I think has the winners added in part 2. Probably for the deeper Survivor fans, but I'm looking forward to next week, and I hope you had some fun listening to my mad ramblings of a Survivor fan. So thanks again, Survivor Teek, signing out. Cheers.